My Dream of Martin Luther King by Faith Ringgold. I have always been a dreamer, but the only dreams I can remember are the ones that I have with my eyes wide open. Once I go to sleep, I rarely remember my dreams. However, one day, while watching a TV program about Martin Luther King, I fell asleep, and I had a dream that I will never forget. In my dream, Martin appeared first as a child, in a place so huge that it could encompass the whole world and all its people. There were children and old folks, men and women of all colors and races and religions, and they all carried bags containing their prejudice and their hate and their ignorance and their violence and their fear, which they intended to trade for hope and freedom, peace and awareness and love. Some people had bigger bags than others, but everybody had something to trade. In this place, there were steps that led right up to the light shining bright in the sky. Young Martin and his father, Daddy King, his mother and his grandmother, Mother Dear, and his brother and his sister, A.D. and Kristen, led the climb up the steps to reach the light. Everyone was singing in the words of that old hymn, "We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday." Then a terrible thing happened. Young Martin's family disappeared, and he was left alone, except for his closest friend, a boy who lived across the street, and the boy's mother. They were standing on school steps when the boy's mother told young Martin to go away. "This is a school for white children," she said. "But I'm starting school now too," young Martin replied proudly. "You must go to the colored school," she barked. "But why?" asked Martin. "Because we are white and you are black," the boy's mother answered. When young Martin saw a policeman, the policeman was the same one who had once called Daddy King a boy. "This is a boy," Daddy King said, pointing at young Martin, "and I am a man. My name is Reverend King." The policeman said no more, and Daddy King drove away. But in my dream, young Martin was alone, and the policeman ran after him, swinging his club and yelling, "Halt, boy! Halt, boy!" Young Martin ran as fast as he could. He saw a bus and got on it. The bus driver was the same one who had made Martin and his teacher stand up so that the white people could sit down. In my dream, the bus driver roared at young Martin, "There are no seats for you on this bus. No seats for Negroes." Young Martin ran from the bus into the crowd of people who were marching and carrying signs and protesting segregated busing. Young Martin was happy to read the signs that called for freedom and justice, because there were problems facing his people. Young Martin joined the demonstrators, who were all singing, "Ain't nobody gonna turn me round." But then police on horseback trampled the peaceful demonstrators, and the police on foot turned water hoses on them, knocking them down. They attacked them with dogs and beat them with cattle prods. They drenched and ragged and bleeding. The crowd stopped marching and singing. Young Martin and all the demonstrators were arrested and thrown into the police wagon and taken to jail. While in jail, young Martin remembered what his mother had told him about slavery and lynching, and that despite the bad treatment his people were receiving, he was as good as anyone. Mother Dear came to young Martin. She took him in her arms, and she told him all about the awful things that had happened to him, and asked why. "Although you are only 6 years old, You can't accept the way things are. You want to find a way to change things, and you will," said Mother Dear. "But not now. Today is Sunday, and we're going to Sunday school and church. Daddy King will preach a sermon, and you and your mother will direct the choir. And you will sing Amazing Grace." And then in my dream, as young Martin sat in the church that day listening to Daddy King preach, there appeared in front of him a very small but powerful holy man from India named Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi told young Martin about the power of love to create change, and about how he had to lead more than 3 million of his people to freedom through peaceful resistance. Young Martin found the answer to helping his people in Gandhi's teaching. Now Martin no longer appeared in my dream as a child, but now as a minister of his own church, with a beautiful wife and 4 children. Many people came to ask the great man to help them. First was a woman who'd been arrested for not giving up her seat on a bus to a white man. Her name was Rosa Parks. A large meeting was called to protest Rosa's arrest. A group called for a boycott of segregated buses, sit-ins in segregated lunch counters, voters registration so that all black people could vote, equal education for all the children, decent housing and jobs for everyone. The group's name was the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and King was its leader. He led his people to our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., where he spoke with such a powerful, resonant voice that everyone was deeply moved. "I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed." King painted a picture of his dream, saying, "I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream today." In my dream, I could see King's 4 children looking up at King's vision of a better world. And then King appeared in my dream with black people and white people sitting together on buses and eating at lunch counters and voting together, with children going to the same schools and living together, and King was very happy. But suddenly there was a noise like a firecracker, and I knew Martin Luther King was dead. In my dream, people were crying, just as we had on the day he was killed. Daddy King, Mother Dear, A.D., Christine, King's wife, Coretta, his 4 children, and his many friends and supporters came to light an eternal flame in memory of that hero. Even the President of the United States was there. The entire world was mourning in sadness. And, as my dream goes, suddenly I was back in that huge place with men and women and children of all colors and races and religions. This time we'd come to mourn Martin Luther King's death by trading our bags containing our prejudices and hates and ignorance and violence and fear for a slain hero's dream. We emptied our bags into a great pile, and as that last bag was dumped, the pile exploded into flames so bright that it lit up the whole world. There, emblazoned across the sky, were the words, "Every good thing starts with a dream." A hushed silence came over us as we heard Martin Luther King's words resonate through the air.
So just as I say, we aren't going to let any dogs or water hoses turn us around, we aren't going to let any injunction turn us around. what will happen now. We've got some difficult days ahead. But it really doesn't matter with me now, because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live. And I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
The sound of his voice was so clear in my dream that it woke me up. When I opened my eyes, I saw there on the TV that he was saying, and he's allowed me to come up to the mountain, and I've looked over, and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we, as a people, will get to the promised land.